Well, welcome to our YouTube channel, and we are continuing today going through the New Testament with the Gospel of Matthew. We are in the Sermon on the Mount, and thank you for joining us. Hope you would like this message and study that we're doing through the New Testament. Also, our podcast that's available through the entire Old Testament. And if you like this, please subscribe, and we'd love to have you as one of our subscribers. So we're looking at Matthew chapter 5 today. Because Jesus challenged the teachings of the Pharisees regarding the Sabbath, hand washings, and other things, there were those people who accused Jesus of abolishing the law of Moses. But Jesus made it clear, I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And he said, I tell you that unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Now that must have blown people's minds, because the Pharisees made it their life's ambition to keep all 313 commandments of the law. But in seeking to keep the law, they actually reduced its power. They limited the law to external observances, but did not give it authority over their hearts. Jesus reinterpreted the law to apply not only to what we do on the outside, but also to what we think on the inside. God's law should govern not only our actions, but also our attitudes. We must have real righteousness if we are going to enter heaven. Now today we will see where Jesus addressed 3 of the 10 commandments, and he used the pattern, you have heard it said, but I tell you. Jesus spoke with great authority to reveal God's true intention for the law. We continue in Matthew chapter 5, verse 21. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. The old commandment that they had heard was, you shall not murder. Now that was the 6th of the 10 commandments. They heard it from the teachers of the law because not everybody had access to the scriptures or could read them for themselves. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hell fire. Now, Jesus interprets this commandment by going to the very root cause of murder, which is anger. Now, there is a proper place for anger, because God is angry with the wicked. We call that righteous indignation. But our anger is not always so righteous. Sometimes it's based on impatience or frustration or even envy. That selfish anger often breaks out in unkind words. Raka means empty head. We might say idiot, especially if somebody cuts us off on the road and makes us slam on our brakes. Jesus said that if you insult someone like this, then you are in danger of the council. He was referring to the Jewish ruling council known as the Sanhedrin. In other words, you could go to court. Furthermore, if you condemn someone by calling him a fool, then you are in danger of the condemnation of hell fire. The reason is that you are speaking with hatred towards somebody who is made in the image of God. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. In Christ's day, bringing a gift to the altar meant offering either an animal sacrifice or a grain offering that would be burned on the altar. It was your gift to God as an expression of your worship. The point is that before we worship God, we should first work things out with our brother or sister. The offering that most pleases God is when we are at peace with one another. So Jesus said, agree with your adversary quickly while you are on the way with him, lest your adversary deliver you to the judge hand you over to the officer, and you be thrown into prison. Assuredly, I say to you, you will by no means get out of there till you have paid the last penny. Resolving differences also applies to adversaries and unbelievers. Jesus tells us that it is best to settle out of court and do so as quickly as possible. You will save yourself much time, trouble, and money if you address the complaint before it becomes a lawsuit. And then the only person who wins is the attorney. In that day, they had the debtor's prison, which you would go there if you couldn't pay your debt. But then how would you ever pay your debt if you're locked up and couldn't work? Verse 27, you have heard that it was said of those of old, you shall not commit adultery. This was the seventh of the 10 commandments. We all know what grief the sin of adultery brings to a marriage relationship. We all have known marriages and families that have been blown apart because of this sin. But where does it start? It begins in the heart. Jesus said, "But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart." All sin begins with the thoughts we entertain. A woman may catch your eye and you think to yourself, wow, she's a knockout. That might be a visceral response, and you can't necessarily control the first thought, but what do you do with that thought? When David looked out from his balcony and saw Bathsheba bathing, he couldn't control the initial appreciation of her beauty, but when that momentary glance turned into a lustful gaze, he was hooked. He had already committed adultery with her in his heart. Now, this principle can also be applied to women. If a man, other than your husband, listens to you, pays attention to you, speaks kindly to you, or shares his heart with you, and your husband does none of the above, then you may be strongly attracted to that man. What do you do with those thoughts? Do you confess them to the Lord in prayer and ask God to give you a new heart, or do you entertain them? You see, adultery begins in the heart. Of course, Hollywood doesn't help us here. Movies make sexual sin look justifiable, even right. But we would all be wise to heed the words of Solomon. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. So Jesus said, if your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. These words have often been misunderstood. Obviously, Jesus was not teaching physical mutilation, for a one-eyed man would still have another eye to lust with, and a person who cut off one hand could still use the other one to sin. Jesus uses hyperbole to warn us that we must deal severely with the causes of temptation. So if your television, computer, or phone cause you to sin, then cut off your access to it and only use it with accountability, because it's better to be disconnected or even to have a flip phone than to live in sin and be cast into hell. If there is a relationship with someone that is a temptation for you, then cut it off. Better to do that than to risk destroying your family, your career, your ministry. If you know you have a cancer in your body, you will do everything to get rid of it. Likewise, we must do whatever is necessary to put to death our sinful passions and cut off access to our source of temptations. Verse 31, furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. Now, this really continued from the 8th commandment about adultery. Moses allowed a man to write a certificate of divorce to his wife if he found some uncleanness in her. He was not advocating divorce, but establishing boundaries for a pre-existing practice. Moses said if a man divorced his wife because of some uncleanness and then she married another, she was not to go back to the original husband. In Jesus' day, rabbis then argued about what constituted moral uncleanness and what were the permissible reasons for divorce. But the problem was that people were taking marriage far too lightly. Men were trading in their old wives to get a newer model. If they felt they weren't being respected at home, then they would find someone else who would give them respect. Rather than working out their problems, they were allowing their hearts to harden toward their wives. They gave their wife a divorce certificate and then felt justified because they had kept the law of Moses. But Jesus said that if you divorce your wife, except for the reason of her infidelity, then you are causing her to commit adultery. And anyone who marries such a divorced woman commits adultery. Why? Because in the eyes of God, you and your wife are one flesh. Now, we will deal more with Jesus' teaching on divorce and remarriage when we get to Matthew 19. The main thing to keep in mind here is that these men felt justified in divorcing their wives, but Jesus said, you are worse off than you think. You think you are so righteous, but you are not. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. Now, the third commandment was, do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. So people would swear oaths in the name of the Lord. The Pharisees would then manipulate this so that they could say that they had kept the commandment. They said that if you make a vow but don't swear by the divine name, then you're off the hook, and you're not obligated then to do what you said. So they would swear by other things rather than the name of the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your yes be yes, and your no, no. For whatever is more than this is from the evil one. So Jesus just said, don't swear at all. Not by heaven, not by earth, not by Jerusalem, not by your head, not by the hair of your chinny chin chin. I guess actually that was the 3 little pigs. But the point is, don't swear. And why do people swear anyway? They'll say, well, I swear on my mother's grave that I put the check in the mail. People swear to make themselves sound more credible. But a person who is a liar and makes promises that he doesn't keep can't be trusted. So he swears by something greater than himself to prove that he's actually telling the truth. But if you are a person of the truth, then your word is enough. Simply say yes or no. Nothing else is needed. Anything else, Jesus would say, is from the devil. So Jesus established a righteousness that far surpasses the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. He's concerned with what's going on in our hearts. He wants our hearts to be pure and for us to be people of integrity. That is the true purpose of the law. It is both inward and outward. Well, thank you for joining us again. I hope you like our podcast as we go through the Bible. And you can subscribe to this, ring the bell if you'd like to be notified of future broadcasts. God bless you. Thank you.